Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima. I'm going to talk to you about some more games that I tried to play, but just couldn't manage to get a video done on them. Because, well, I did this before, right? And I got a bunch of games, I played them, but I never got around to doing a video on them, so I just threw them all into one video. That was a few months ago at this point, and I'm basically doing the same thing here. Notably, there isn't going to be any quote-unquote retail games in this one, because in case you didn't know, games cost a lot of money in Australia, and I haven't been able to afford any of them, or at least I haven't been willing to put down the cash for them. There's been a few games along those lines that I thought I might have tried out, but just never really got around to it. I wanted to try Deathloop, just as an example, but after hearing that it was nowhere near as good as Prey or Dishonored, mainly Prey, because Prey was probably my favorite game of, what was it, 2017? Yeah, I just couldn't bring myself to plop down the $60 US, $100 Australian, whatever they were going to be charging for it. And there were a couple of other retail games along those lines too, where I'd hear about it and I'd think, okay, maybe I want to do a video on that, but then something like that would break the game for me personally also comes out, and I'm like, nah, I'm not going to spend $80 to find out I don't like this game and not be able to refund it. So I'm just going to tell you about 4 games that I have gotten a decent amount of time in, but just wasn't able to get a video done on for one reason or another. So the first one, and the one that I arguably spent the most time on, was a DS game called Blood of Bahamut, nothing to do with Bahamut Lagoon. It was a fan translation that came out a couple of years ago, but I've always been interested in some DS fan translations, and this just happened to be one of them. I played it on my computer using a slightly modified control scheme, because if you get it in a way that is, if you get it set up right, you basically can play it with just keyboard and mouse, and it feels, well, not natural, but close enough that you can kind of forgive it, so it is actually perfectly playable. And the idea is, it's a Monster Hunter clone, but it's played entirely on the DS's touchscreen, where you go around, you go on these like floating platforms in the middle of the abyss, and you take on these titans, which is, it's basically the plot to Xenoblade Chronicles, but you made it Monster Hunter instead. And you're on these floating platforms, the monster is way off in the distance, and you can tap away at it in order to hit it at range, and when it gets close, you can tap it in order to deal damage to it in melee. And there's like armor blocking cores, which will do more damage. All of the beasts are supposed to have like unique movement and what have you. There's some equipment upgrading to do and all of that sort of stuff. But none of it particularly stands out, and then a few of the mechanics involved have problems. And the main one is that the game desperately needs AI teammates. You need AI teammates in order to take some of the heat off you. You need them to be able to distract the monsters so that you can take the opportunity to make use of their weak points. You can just have them running around to add a little bit more liveliness to the scene, because when it's just you, and when it's just you and no one else, it's just incredibly boring. And that's just kind of unfortunate, because AI would have done so much for this game, even if it was literally just like another person you had to order around specifically or something. It would have added so much, but no, didn't happen here. And it can be a little bit confusing exactly what they want you to do at times. They make you go through like 5 or 6 tutorial stages for each monster before they actually let you fight the monster directly. And you have to basically, in this one mission I'm talking about, you have to go and get it to come in close and use its tail whack attack so that you can see the back of its legs and therefore blow off some armor and some cores on the back of its legs. But even after I did that, and that took me 20 minutes because it was an immense pain in the ass trying to get the thing not only to do its tail whack, but to be in a position where I could actually see its back legs, because these things are so big that you might not even be able to see the hind legs, even if you're up its ass, which is genuinely impressive. But still, even after all of that, and I broke the armor of the hind legs off, it still wouldn't let me finish the mission. I didn't know what the hell was going on. It took me 30 minutes to finish that mission, which really should have been 5. And there's a few other examples of this happening as well within the first couple of fights. You do get like these side missions that let you take on the beast entirely, but it takes 5 or 6 story missions to get there, and the writing just isn't very good. All of the characters feel like blank slates for the most part, and there's really nothing going on except that it's basically the Xenoblade Chronicles plot, but they turned it into a Monster Hunter game instead. I mean, good idea, it's just really not that good execution. And it's just kind of boring. That's really the biggest issue with it. all you're really doing is just idly tapping on the monster in order to try and hit it. You've got special attacks that you can do, but that really is just tap somewhere else and then tap back on the monster. There are mini monsters to fight, but really, if you're properly equipped, you're going to be taking them out in one shot or two anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference. And the upgrade systems are just kill the thing a certain number of times, break off some parts, and then you get to turn your current sword into a higher power sword. There's also like special versions of the bosses you can unlock by inputting these like weird relic things in order, but I didn't get to them because after about 3 hours, which is generally enough for me to do a video on a game, I just found myself thinking, you know what? I don't want to play this anymore. So I didn't. That was pretty much the long and the short of it on that one. A game so boring I didn't even want to do a video on it, despite the fact that I was practically ready to. Now, admittedly, the next 3 I didn't give as much time to, but I like to think you'll understand why as we get into them. So, another one that just came to mind randomly, because I've been doing PlayStation 1 games recently, right? And the one in particular I was thinking of is a game called Max Power Racing. I've already done Roll Cage Stage 2. I've done Racing Lagoon. Kind of on a racing kick, mainly because Forza Horizon 5 is going to be out in a few days. I'm not the sort of person to pay $150 when you can just buy the game regularly a few days later for $80. I'm not that bloody crazy. But I am the sort of person who likes to play some games in order to make a run up to this one. And Max Power Racing was notable to me because I've never played the original. I've never played the full game, but I did play a demo of it, which was on like an African track, and one of my favorite things to do in that demo was to run a car off a cliff and watch it fall into the water, and then it would have this absolutely perfectly placed race over screen, and it made me cackle every single time. And this was like 20 years ago, something like that. God, I'm old. But yeah, it sounded like a good game, so you know what, I figured I'd do a video on it. Booted it up, gave it a few races, and I realized that it was just entirely generic. Like, there's genuinely very little that stands out about it. The racetracks are just, there's nothing really particularly notable about them. It is a relatively nice looking game, but it's also on the PlayStation 1, and the tracks also feel kind of uneven. It helps with the fact that the game gives it a little bit of extra, roughness on the road, so that cars can feel like they're really bumping and bouncing all over the place. But it also means that they don't really get air that much, and when they do, it takes an absolutely huge ramp or what have you, and it just kind of balances out into kind of nothingness. The cars aren't particularly great to drive. And when I drove off the edge on the first track that I had available to me in order to see if it was as funny as I remember to go driving off an edge, it was, let's just say it wasn't particularly inspiring. And the only thing I found of note, and this is only something I found out after I was like, yeah, this probably isn't worth doing a video on, was the fact that it was made by Technics. Technics, if you don't know, are the developers behind Right to Hell Retribution. And when that is literally the most notable thing about a game that you can think of, it's not worth doing a video on it. It's simply not worth it. So I just pulled that one back on the shelf and I just went for something else. And that one was Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader, which I really liked for the parts of it I could stand to play. I was playing it on Dolphin because I don't have a GameCube. This is something I need to sort out. In fact, I really need to sort out something that'll let me record all of my consoles on the Elgato capture kit I've got here, just for the purpose of doing videos on older games. Because I've got a PlayStation 2, I've got an Xbox, they're both soft modded to hell, and I'd love to get my hands on a Dreamcast with an ODE and a GameCube with a modded memory card, but that's just a lot of money. It's a lot of money. But, as I was saying, I was playing Rogue Leader. There's a lot I like about it. Flying ships feels great. The effects are authentic. They've got the actual voice actor for Wedge Antilles in there, and he sounds great. The ways they've got some of the presentation going on is absolutely fantastic. I love the way that they play the little video clips in the background of the actual movies. But there is one big problem with it. At least in Dolphin. Because whenever you're playing this in Dolphin and you look towards a heavy populated area, the game starts going really slow. Captain Antilles, we need you to blow up the ATST walkers. Stuff like that. And I don't know about you, but I genuinely find that kind of thing unbearable. And I was fiddling with the settings. I had it at 4K internal resolution. I turned off all of like the enhancements and it still ran that bloody slow. Even when I went and I looked up like this INI file change for Dolphin's files specifically, I got better performance, but it was still going like this most of the time. It was a bit better, but it wasn't exactly all there. It would drop and then it would come back to normal speed and then it would slow down just a bit, and I just can't find myself playing it like this. Genuinely unfortunate, because I would have loved to have spent 15 minutes singing the praises of it, because it's like the one GameCube launch game that I hadn't played, so I figured, you know what, let's do that. Let's celebrate the GameCube's like 20th anniversary in North America, which is like, if it's not the day that I put this video out, it's very, very close. So, yeah, again, I'm a little bit disappointed in that. But then I thought to myself, why don't I go and pick something from the GameCube library that I haven't played yet that is known to be good, just to try and give myself a little bit of an extra edge. And I was like, let's play Battalion Wars, because I haven't played that. I've been meaning to get around playing that for a while. And there's a lot that I like about it. Oh man, it's Dolphin coming back to stab me in the back again. But let me just give you the traditional Blue Maxima rant. So, it looks great. I love just the character of the way that the soldiers walk around. I love the caricatures. I love some of the voices. The voice talent they've got in is really good. I kind of laugh at the fact that the very first human character you see in this game is literally a dickhead. Like the back of his head, it looks like the tip of a penis. It can't be just me that sees it that way. But yes, I really like the character it's got going on. And the actual like moment to moment gameplay of going up to dudes and shooting them with a bunch of different things is great. The strategy part of the gameplay, however, is really let down by its controls. Now, it is entirely possible to understand them, but when it comes to doing some relatively complex maneuvers, it makes things just a bit difficult. I got up to mission 8, and apparently there's only like 20 missions plus 4 bonus missions, something along those lines, so I got a fair bit of the way through the game. And even then, I found myself having a bit of trouble, because they give you 5 or 6 different kinds of units to use at once, and you can either order them all around, order an individual group of units, or order an individual unit. But to do that, you need to do what I can basically describe as finger jousting, where you have to press the C stick to the right. Then if you want to order one, you have to go up, and then you have to press the Y button in order to send them off. You have to hold the R button down so that you can look to the place where you want to send them, and then you press the Y button. It's really easy if you want to just take everyone and then just mush them up into the enemy, but there are very few situations in which you want to actually do that. You want to take advantage of who's weak and who's strong, and so you'll order like all of your units to stand down, then you'll order a bunch of units to follow you, the ones that you want to take along, and then you'll have to stop and look around and send someone somewhere and send someone somewhere else, and then when they've all gone to their positions, you'll have to order them all to charge in. It takes a really long time, it takes a ton of button presses, and it took me a long amount of time to really get used to it. But I started to get used to it. And admittedly, they do give you tutorials that teach you exactly how all of this works, but it doesn't really stop the whole thing being a little bit of finger gymnastics, and I wish there was a better way to do it. You've got a pause menu which lets you swap into any unit that you've got at any time, and I just wish that that could be used in order to make the actual in-the-moment strategy a bit better. But they can't do that because at the end of every level, you're rated on how fast you were, how well you put units up against each other, and how many of the enemy unit you killed. And if you don't get all of those above a specific number, you don't unlock the bonus missions. So you find yourself in a little bit of a dilly of a pickle, but you can get used to it. You'll start building it up. You'll start going back to earlier missions and being able to get them done a little bit better. And then you'll run into the problem with Dolphin. I do not know what the hell happened with Dolphin when I was trying to play this, right? But every single mission I started to play after a specific point, even if I went back and played some of the older ones, would crash before I got halfway through. So I couldn't even get any footage because Dolphin would just stop about 5 minutes in and it wouldn't let me record anymore. So, yeah, almost about to recommend playing it, even if it was a bit finger gymnasticy, but I just couldn't, for the life of me, get it to work for more than 5 minutes at a time after a specific point. And that just seems to be how things have been going recently. Just trying to get shit done, and I just haven't been able to get it done the way I want to. Even Blue Boards has been having a little bit of trouble in that regard. I've been trying to get certain games out the door, but I just can't get the rants the way I want them to be. It often takes me 5 or 6 takes before I can even, get a certain one done. And even then, I might not be happy with it when I actually stick it into my video editor and decide to do it again at some point, which is why sometimes you'll get videos like Suro or Carcassonne, which are of classic games that are relatively short to explain. So they're just kind of like backups, you know? So yeah, generally whenever I put out a video like this means that, yeah, I've kind of been having troubles getting anything done. And it doesn't help the fact that the last few days have been relatively packed with things that need to get done. And I imagine as soon as this video is done recording, I'll need to edit this video, upload it, and then by the time that's done, I'll be back out doing something else. So, yeah, I apologize if this isn't up to the usual standard that you expect from this channel, but you would have thought I had standards. I'll leave you to watch the rest of the raid, because admittedly I did alright. I didn't die, and this is the first time through the Academia Endia, or however you pronounce this, so I call that pretty good. Even though I have had some which have gone really badly. The bloody Titan in the Mario Kart, I did worse than the healer in DPS, which is kind of embarrassing considering I'm a Dragoon. I also wasn't very good at controlling my backflips, so I ended up floor tanking a lot more often than not. But here I did okay, so I'm fine with putting this footage up. I actually had to wait like 25 minutes to get into this because my data center just doesn't have that many people playing healers and tanks, and so it ended up being this weird position where I was just sitting looking at Ishtola and Alisei, and Ishtola was just looking at me like, oh god, what does the Warrior of Light want now? And Alisei's sitting there like, is there something on your face? But yeah, anyway, I'll shut up now. This has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.